Lucia was 6 months old when I found the ledger. It was hidden beneath a false bottom in Adriano's desk drawer, the one he thought I'd never search because he kept it locked. But I'd been looking for Lucia's birth certificate to register her for the pediatrician, and Adriano had mentioned keeping important documents in his office. The key was exactly where he'd always kept things, in plain sight, disguised as a decorative paperweight. I shouldn't have opened the drawer, should have waited for him to come home from his UNESCO meeting in Geneva. Should have trusted that if it was locked, there was a good reason. But motherhood had made me cautious in new ways. I wanted every document, every piece of paper that proved Lucia existed, that she belonged to us, that she was protected. The birth certificate was in the top drawer, exactly where it should be. But when I pulled it out, I noticed the drawer was shallower than it should be, and when I pressed the bottom, it clicked. The ledger was small, leather-bound, filled with neat handwriting in Italian that I'd learned to read over 2 years of marriage. Names, dates, amounts, locations, and transactions that made my blood run cold. I sat at Adriano's desk for an hour, translating entries, cross-referencing names I recognized from news reports. The ledger detailed everything: antiquities acquisitions from Syria, Iraq, Yemen, pieces that had been rescued from conflict zones, payments to intermediaries who facilitated illegal exports, all of it dated within the past 18 months, after he'd promised to go legitimate, after the plea deal, after he'd sworn to me that the gray areas were behind him, after we'd had a child together. My hands shook as I photographed every page with my phone. Then I replaced the ledger exactly as I'd found it, locked the drawer, and put the key back in its hiding place. Then I picked up Lucia from her playmat and held her against my chest, breathing in her baby scent, trying to steady myself. "Your father is a liar," I whispered into her soft hair, "and I don't know what to do about it." She gurgled, happy and oblivious, reaching for my necklace with chubby fingers. I didn't confront Adriano when he came home that evening. Didn't mention the ledger or what I'd found. Instead, I smiled when he kissed me, laughed at his stories from Geneva, and made love to him in our bed with the same passion we'd always shared. But inside, I was planning. The next morning, after Adriano left for the foundation office in the city, I called Sophia. "I need to see you. Can you come to the vineyard?" She heard something in my voice. "I'll be there in an hour." I spent that hour pacing the terrace while Isabella watched Lucia, my mind racing through options. Confront Adriano and demand the truth. Call Agent Chen and turn over the evidence. Take Lucia and disappear before anyone realized we were gone. Every option felt impossible. Dangerous. Wrong. Sophia arrived with coffee and the kind of no-nonsense expression that had sustained our friendship through every crisis. "Talk," she said, settling into a terrace chair. So I told her everything. The ledger, the transactions, the evidence that Adriano had continued his illegal operations even after promising to stop. "What are you going to do?" she asked when I finished. "I don't know." I sank into the chair beside her. "If I confront him, he'll have an explanation. He always does. And I'm terrified I'll believe him because I want to believe him. And if you don't confront him, then I'm complicit. I'm raising our daughter in a house built on lies and illegal deals." My voice cracked. I became exactly what I swore I'd never be. A woman who looks the other way because the truth is too complicated. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "Do you still love him?" "Yes." The admission hurt. That's the problem. I love him. I love our life. I love what we've built together. But I can't, I won't, raise Lucia in a world where her father operates above the law. Then you need to talk to him. Not accuse, not attack, just talk. She squeezed my hand. Give him a chance to explain before you decide anything permanent. She was right. I knew she was right. But fear kept me silent for 3 more days. 3 days of pretending everything was normal while the ledger entries burned in my memory. 3 days of holding Lucia and wondering what kind of future I was building for her. 3 days of watching Adriano with new eyes, looking for signs I'd missed. On the 4th day, Adriano announced he needed to travel to Amman for a UNESCO Heritage Site assessment. 2 weeks, he said over breakfast, Lucia in his lap trying to grab his coffee cup. I hate being away from you both that long, but this project is critical. Syrian refugees are preserving artifacts in Jordanian camps. We need to document and protect them. Syrian artifacts, I repeated, my voice carefully neutral. Yes, pieces that made it out before the worst of the destruction. He kissed Lucia's head. This is exactly the kind of work we should be doing. Legal, important, making a real difference. The casual lie, because I knew now it was a lie, or at least a half-truth, made something inside me crack. I found your ledger, I said quietly. He froze, Lucia still in his arms. What? 4 days ago, I was looking for Lucia's birth certificate. I found the false bottom in your desk drawer. I met his eyes. I read it, Adriano. All of it. He was silent for a long moment. Then he stood carefully, handed Lucia to me, and walked to the terrace railing, his back to us. How much did you understand? He asked finally. Enough. I settled Lucia on my hip. Enough to know you've been lying to me for 18 months, that the plea deal didn't stop anything, that you've continued acquiring pieces through illegal channels. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. My voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. Make me understand how you could promise me you'd gone legitimate and then continue breaking the law. How you could risk everything, your freedom, the foundation, our family, for antiquities. He turned to face me, and the expression on his face was one I'd never seen before. Not anger, not guilt. Something closer to resignation. Come with me, he said. I need to show you something. Adriano drove us to a warehouse on the outskirts of town, a nondescript building I'd never noticed before. He unlocked the door with a key from his personal ring, deactivated a sophisticated security system, and led me inside. The space was temperature-controlled, humidity-regulated, and filled with artifacts. Not art, not wine. Cultural heritage pieces that belonged in museums. A 6th century Byzantine mosaic. Stone tablets with cuneiform inscriptions. Bronze figurines that looked Mesopotamian. Fragments of frescoes too beautiful to have survived what I knew they'd survived. What is this? I whispered, Lucia quiet in my carrier against my chest. Everything I couldn't save through legitimate channels. Adriano moved through the space, his hand trailing along a display case. Pieces that were hours from being destroyed or sold on the black market to fund terrorism. You're still smuggling. I'm still preserving. His voice was firm. The difference matters, Helena. Not to the law. The law is written by people who care more about jurisdiction than survival. He stopped in front of a case containing what looked like ancient manuscripts. These are pages from a 6th century Syriac Bible, the only surviving copy. They were in a monastery outside Aleppo when ISIS arrived. A monk contacted me, begged me to save them before they were burned as heresy. So you bought them illegally? I facilitated their rescue. Yes, through channels that violated international law. And now they're safe, documented, and will eventually be donated to an academic institution. He turned to face me. Would you prefer I'd let them burn? I'd prefer you'd been honest with me about still doing this. If I'd been honest, you would have asked me to stop. And I can't stop, Helena. Not while there are pieces being destroyed. Not while I have the resources and connections to save them. I looked around the warehouse. At millennia of human creativity preserved in climate-controlled darkness. At heritage saved from extinction. At evidence of crimes that could send my husband to federal prison. How many people know about this? Marco, 3 trusted colleagues who handle logistics, and now you. His gaze was steady. I never wanted you involved. Never wanted you to have to choose between supporting what I do and staying within the law. But I am involved. I'm your wife. Lucia is your daughter. My voice rose despite my attempts to control it. We're implicated in everything you do. Legally, you're not. The warehouse is owned by a shell corporation you're not connected to. The acquisitions are conducted through intermediaries you've never met. If I'm caught, you walk away clean. You think I care about legal protection? I stared at him. I care about the lies, Adriano. About you promising to stop and then continuing anyway. About building our family on a foundation I thought was solid, but turns out to be quicksand. He moved closer, stopping just short of touching me. I never lied about who I was. I told you from the beginning that I operated in gray areas, that I made choices others wouldn't make. You said you were done with that. I said I was done with the dangerous parts, with working with criminals and oligarchs, with taking legal risks that could destroy everything. He gestured at the warehouse. This is different. These pieces have been vetted, documented. Every acquisition is reversible. If UNESCO or any legitimate organization wants them, they can have them. I'm not hoarding. I'm preserving until proper homes can be found. That's still illegal. Yes, no hesitation. But it's the right kind of illegal. The kind that saves irreplaceable heritage. The kind my mother would have approved of. The invocation of his mother, the woman whose work had started all of this, felt like emotional manipulation. But I also understood what he meant. Adriano wasn't smuggling for profit. He was continuing his mother's mission through the only channels available to him. What's in Amman? I asked. The real reason you're going. A collection of Syrian manuscripts. Religious texts from various traditions. Christian, Muslim, Jewish. They made it across the border with refugee families who are now desperate for money. He paused. I'm going to buy them, document them, preserve them, and eventually donate them to an institution that will make them accessible to scholars. Illegally. Illegally, he agreed, but preserving them nonetheless. I turned away, looking at a bronze figurine that was probably 3,000 years old. Someone had created that. Someone had valued it enough to preserve it through generations. And now it sat in a warehouse because the legal channels for protection had failed. I need time, I said finally, to think about what this means, what it means for us. How much time? I don't know. I turned back to face him. But I need you to understand something, Adriano. If I decide I can't live with this, with what you're doing, I'm taking Lucia and leaving, and I won't come back. Pain flashed across his face. You'd take my daughter from me? I'd protect our daughter from a father who might end up in prison. My voice was steady despite the tears threatening. She deserves stability, security, a life where she doesn't have to visit her father through glass. I'm careful. Careful isn't enough. I adjusted Lucia in her carrier. Bruno was careful too. And look how that turned out. The comparison to my ex-boyfriend was deliberately cruel, but I needed Adriano to understand. I wouldn't sacrifice myself or my daughter for anyone. Not again. Take me home, I said. I need to feed Lucia. The drive back to the vineyard was silent. When we arrived, Adriano helped me out of the car but didn't follow me inside. I'm going to cancel Amman, he said. Stay here. We'll figure this out together. No. I turned to face him. Go to Amman. Buy your manuscripts. Save your heritage. But when you come back, we're going to have a serious conversation about what kind of life we're building for our daughter. And if I don't like your answers, I'm leaving. Helena. 2 weeks, Adriano. That's how long you have to decide if preserving the past is worth risking our future. I walked into the house without looking back, Lucia warm against my chest, and tried to figure out what the hell I was going to do. Adriano left for Amman the next morning. I watched his car disappear down the private road and felt something shift inside me, a certainty that whatever happened next would change everything. I spent the first 3 days in a fog of indecision. Sophia visited daily, let me talk in circles, and didn't judge when I contradicted myself every other sentence. I love him, but I can't trust him. I understand why he's doing it, but I can't accept the risk. I want to leave, but I can't imagine life without him. You don't have to decide everything today, Sophia reminded me. You just have to decide what you need to know to make a choice. What I needed was more information. So on day 4, I called Marco. I know about the warehouse, I said without preamble when he answered, and I need to understand exactly what Adriano is involved in. Marco was silent for a moment. Then, I'll come to the vineyard this afternoon. He arrived at 3, looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen him. Marco was usually unflappable, Adriano's right hand, efficient and discreet. Today he looked like a man being asked to betray his boss. He didn't want you to know, Marco said, after I'd settled him at the kitchen table with coffee. He was trying to protect you. By lying to me for 18 months? By keeping you separate from activities that could implicate you legally. Marco stirred sugar into his coffee methodically. Mr. Nero has been very careful about establishing firewalls between his legitimate work and the preservation operations. Preservation operations? That's what we're calling smuggling now? That's what it is. Marco met my eyes. Mrs. Nero, I've worked for your husband for 8 years. I've seen him turn down profitable deals because the provenance was questionable. I've watched him donate millions to legitimate institutions. Everything he does is about preservation, not profit. And when he gets caught, when federal agents show up here and arrest him in front of our daughter, he's taken precautions, legal structures that protect you and Lucia, financial arrangements that ensure you're provided for if something happens to him. Marco pulled out a folder. He asked me to give you this if you ever found out. It's a complete overview of his legal protections for you. I opened the folder. Inside were documents outlining trusts, holding companies, and legal structures I barely understood. But the bottom line was clear. If Adriano was prosecuted, I'd be shielded. The vineyard was in my name. The foundation had independent oversight. Even the house was held in a trust that protected me from any claims. He's been planning for getting caught, I said slowly. He's been planning to protect his family, Marco corrected. There's a difference. Is there? I closed the folder. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like he's been preparing for an inevitable disaster while continuing to court that disaster. Marco was quiet for a moment. May I speak frankly, Mrs. Nero? Please. Your husband is one of the best men I've ever known. He's not perfect. He operates in moral gray areas that most people would find uncomfortable. But everything he does, everything, is driven by a genuine desire to preserve beauty and knowledge that would otherwise be lost forever. I understand his motivations, Marco. But understanding doesn't mean accepting. What would make you accept it? The question was direct. What would convince you that what he's doing is worth the risk? I looked down at Lucia, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet beside the table. I don't know that anything could. Because the risk isn't just to him anymore. It's to her. And I won't sacrifice my daughter's future for anyone's mission. Even a mission that preserves the past for future generations? For daughters like Lucia to study and appreciate? The argument was clever, and I hated that it resonated. What Adriano was doing was creating a heritage that Lucia might one day value. But at what cost? Thank you for coming, Marco, I said, standing. I need to think. He left, and I spent the evening staring at legal documents I didn't fully understand, trying to find certainty in a situation that offered none. On day 6, Agent Chen called. "Mrs. Nero, I hope I'm not disturbing you." Her voice sent ice through my veins. "Agent Chen, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to follow up on our conversation from 2 years ago. You remember, when we discussed your husband's business practices?" "I remember. We've received information suggesting Mr. Nero may have resumed certain activities." Her tone was carefully neutral. "Activities that violate the terms of his probation." My throat went dry. "What kind of activities?" "I can't discuss specifics. But if you've observed anything unusual, travel to conflict regions, unexplained acquisitions, meetings with individuals who might facilitate illegal exports, we'd be very interested in speaking with you." The photographs on my phone felt like they were burning through my pocket. Evidence. Proof. Everything Agent Chen needed to prosecute Adriano. "I haven't observed anything," I heard myself say. "You're certain? Because if you know something and fail to report it, that could make you an accessory." "Are you threatening me, Agent Chen?" "I'm reminding you of your legal obligations." Her voice softened slightly. "Mrs. Nero, Helena, I know this is difficult, but your husband is breaking federal law, and if we discover you knew about it and said nothing, we can't protect you." "I understand." "Do you? Because you have a young daughter now. Think about what's best for her." The call ended, and I sat frozen at the kitchen table, paralyzed by impossible choices. Tell Agent Chen what I knew and send my husband to prison. Protect Adriano and potentially become an accessory myself. Take Lucia and run before everything collapsed. None of the options were good. All of them carried consequences I couldn't fully calculate. That evening, I finally called Adriano. He answered on the first ring. "Helena, is everything all right? Is Lucia?" "We're fine." I cut him off. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Always. Do you love what you do more than you love us?" Silence, long enough that I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "No," he said finally. "But I love it enough that giving it up completely would destroy something essential in me. And I don't know if I can be the man you need me to be without it." The honesty was devastating and clarifying. "Then we have a problem," I said softly. "Because I need you to be a man who puts his family first, who doesn't risk his freedom for heritage pieces, who builds a life with me instead of preparing for the inevitable disaster. I'm trying to do both. You can't." My voice was steady. "You have to choose, Adriano, the preservation work or your family. You can't have both." "Helena, I'm taking Lucia to Sophia's for the rest of the week. When you come back from Amen, you can come get us if you've made your choice. Otherwise, I'm hiring a lawyer." "Don't do this." "I love you," I interrupted. "But I love our daughter more. And she deserves a father who's present, who's free, who isn't constantly looking over his shoulder waiting for federal agents." I hung up before he could respond. Then I packed bags for Lucia and me, loaded the car, and drove to Sophia's apartment in the city. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "You did the right thing." Did I? I was crying now, great heaving sobs that I'd been holding back for days. Because it feels like I just destroyed my marriage. You gave him a choice," Sophia corrected, guiding me inside. "What he does with it is up to him." Lucia and I stayed with Sophia for 8 days. Adriano called twice daily, left voicemails I didn't listen to, and sent texts I deleted without reading. On day 9, he showed up at Sophia's door. He looked terrible, exhausted, unshaven, thinner than when he'd left. But his eyes were clear and steady as they met mine. "Can we talk?" he asked. I looked at Sophia, who nodded and took Lucia from my arms. I'll give you privacy." Adriano and I sat in Sophia's small living room, the city sounds filtering through the windows. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I went to Amen," he said finally. "I bought the manuscripts, and then I donated them to UNESCO immediately, with full provenance documentation, completely legal. I waited. While I was there, I met with my contacts, the people who've been facilitating the gray area acquisitions. I told them I was done, that my family was more important than any heritage piece." Hope flickered in my chest. "You're stopping completely?" "I'm transitioning to a new model." He pulled out his phone and showed me documents. "I'm establishing a legitimate fund through UNESCO. It will provide resources for refugees and locals in conflict zones to preserve heritage legally. Documentation, security, transportation through proper channels, everything above board." "Can that work?" "It won't save everything. Legal channels are slow and bureaucratic. Some pieces will be lost." His voice was tight. "But it means I can sleep at night knowing I'm not risking my family's future." "What about the warehouse? The pieces you've already acquired?" "Donated. All of it. I've been working with UNESCO to establish provenance and transfer ownership to appropriate institutions." He met my eyes. "It's done, Helena. The gray areas are behind me. For real this time." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. "Agent Chen called," I said. "She knows you resumed the acquisitions. She threatened to charge me as an accessory if I didn't cooperate." His face went pale. "What did you tell her?" "That I hadn't observed anything." I paused. "But I have evidence, Adriano. Photos of your ledger. Documentation that could put you in prison. Are you going to give it to her?" "I don't know." The honesty hurt. Part of me thinks I should, that you need consequences. That without them, you'll just find another way to justify breaking the law. And the other part? The other part remembers why I fell in love with you. Because you're passionate about preserving beauty. Because you see value where others see rubble. Because you're willing to risk everything for what you believe in. I blinked back tears. "But I need you to risk everything for us instead. Just this once. I need us to be more important than heritage." He crossed the space between us and dropped to his knees in front of me, taking my hands in his. "You are more important. Both of you. And I'm sorry it took almost losing you to make me see that clearly." His voice broke. "Come home, please. Let me prove I've changed. Let me be the father and husband you deserve." I looked down at this powerful, complicated man kneeling before me, offering everything I'd asked for, offering to be less than he was for the sake of our family. "I need guarantees," I said finally. "Real ones, not just promises. Name them. Full transparency. I see every business deal, every transaction, every contact. No more locked drawers or false bottoms. Done. The warehouse gets emptied and closed. Everything donated within 6 months. Already in progress. And if I ever find evidence that you've resumed illegal operations, I take Lucia and I don't come back. No second chances. No explanations." His hands tightened on mine. "I understand. Do you? Because this is it, Adriano. This is the line. Cross it and we're done." "I won't cross it." He pulled me close. "I can't lose you, either of you. I'll do whatever it takes." I let him hold me, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling the solidity of him against me. And I made my choice. To believe him. To trust that love could be stronger than passion for a mission. To build a future on the hope that he meant what he said. "Take us home," I whispered. He did. And for the first time in 2 weeks, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we'd survive this. The next 6 months were the hardest of our marriage. Adriano emptied the warehouse piece by piece, working with UNESCO to document and transfer every artifact to appropriate institutions. I attended every meeting, reviewed every document, watched every transaction. The Foundation shifted focus entirely to legal preservation, providing resources, training, and equipment to heritage professionals in conflict zones. No more gray areas, no more questionable acquisitions, just clean, transparent work that wouldn't land anyone in prison. Agent Chen didn't call again. Either she'd lost interest, or she was waiting for Adriano to slip up. Either way, the sword of Damocles hung over our heads. "Do you regret it?" I asked him one night, after we'd put Lucia to bed. We were on the terrace, the vineyard golden in the sunset, giving up the preservation work every day. His honesty was brutal. I see reports of heritage sites destroyed, and I think about the pieces I could have saved, the knowledge that's being lost forever. But then Lucia laughs, or you smile at me over breakfast, or I wake up next to you instead of in a prison cell. He pulled me closer, and I remember that some prices are too high to pay, even for beauty. It wasn't a perfect answer. Part of me wished he could say he didn't regret it at all, that we were enough to fill the void. But I appreciated the truth. "I'm proud of you," I said, "for choosing us. I'm proud of you for making me choose." He kissed my temple. "You saved me from myself, Helena, from becoming so obsessed with a mission that I lost everything that actually mattered." The vineyard thrived. Isabella had expanded production, and we were now shipping to 3 countries. The authentication catalog I'd created was still being used as the gold standard. The Foundation was making real impact through legal channels. Life was good, stable, safe. And then, on a Tuesday morning when Lucia was 18 months old, everything changed again. I was in the vineyard office reviewing Foundation budgets when Marco appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. "Mrs. Nero, you need to come to the house immediately." Fear shot through me. "Is it Adriano? Is he hurt?" "No, but there are federal agents at the door. They have a warrant." My world tilted. "For what?" "I don't know. They won't tell me. They're demanding to speak with Mr. Nero." I grabbed my phone and called Adriano. He answered immediately. "Helena, what's wrong?" "Federal agents are here with a warrant. Marco says they won't explain what it's for." Silence. Then, "Don't let them in until I get there. I'll call my lawyer and be there in 15 minutes. "Adriano, what is this about?" "I don't know." But something in his voice told me he had suspicions. "Just stall them. I'm on my way." I hurried to the house, where 3 agents in dark suits waited on the terrace. Agent Chen wasn't among them. "Mrs. Nero?" The lead agent, a man who introduced himself as Agent Williams, held up credentials. "We have a warrant to search the premises and seize certain documents related to Adriano Nero's business activities. My husband is on his way. His lawyer advised us not to allow entry until they arrive." "We don't need permission, ma'am. We have a warrant." He handed me papers. "But we'd prefer to do this cooperatively." I scanned the warrant, trying to understand the legal jargon. Something about financial fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to violate cultural heritage protection laws. "What is this about?" I asked. "We're not at liberty to discuss an ongoing investigation." Williams's tone was professional, but firm. "If you and your daughter could please wait in the guest house, we'll conduct our search with minimal disruption." "I'm not leaving my home." "Ma'am?" "I have a toddler inside. I'm not going anywhere until my husband arrives." Williams sighed but nodded. "Fine, but please don't interfere with our work." They entered the house, and I stood helplessly as they began systematically searching Adriano's office. Marco hovered nearby, his phone pressed to his ear, presumably updating Adriano. 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. When Adriano's car finally pulled up, followed closely by a Mercedes carrying his lawyers. I nearly wept with relief. Adriano went straight to the agents, his expression controlled but his eyes fierce. "What is this about?" Williams handed him a copy of the warrant. "We're investigating allegations that you've continued to facilitate illegal antiquities trafficking through shell corporations and front organizations." "That's absurd. I've donated every questionable piece in my possession. My lawyer can provide documentation." "We're aware of the donations, Mr. Nero. This investigation concerns activities that occurred after those donations." Williams pulled out a photo. "Do you recognize this man?" I couldn't see the photo from where I stood, but I saw Adriano's face go carefully blank. "I'd like to speak with my attorney before answering any questions." "Of course," Williams gestured to his team. "Continue the search." Adriano pulled me aside while his lawyers conferred with the agents. "Where's Lucia?" "With Isabella at the vineyard. I told her to keep her there until this is over." "Good." He cupped my face in his hands. "Helena, I need you to listen carefully. Whatever they find, whatever they claim I've done, I swear to you I've kept my promise. I haven't resumed illegal acquisitions." "Then what is this about?" "I don't know yet, but someone is setting me up, or—" He stopped. "Just trust me. Please." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But as I watched federal agents systematically dismantle our life, pulling files from drawers and photographing documents, I felt the fragile trust we'd rebuilt begin to crack. The agents spent 4 hours searching the house. They seized Adriano's computers, his files, and boxes of documents I didn't even know existed. When they finally left, our home looked like a crime scene. Adriano's lead attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca Chen, who bore no relation to Agent Chen, gathered us in the living room. "They're building a case based on financial transactions," she said, reviewing the warrant. "Wire transfers to entities in Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon. They believe these payments were for illegally exported antiquities." "They weren't," Adriano said firmly. "Those were legitimate foundation grants to heritage professionals in refugee camps. Can you prove that?" "Every transaction is documented. Contracts with recipients, reports on how funds were used, everything is clean." Rebecca made notes. "Then why are they investigating?" "Because someone gave them reason to believe the transactions weren't legitimate." Adriano's jaw was tight. "Someone who wants to destroy what I've built." "Who?" I asked. "I have suspicions, but I need to verify before making accusations." Rebecca closed her laptop. "Until we know more, don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't make statements to press. Don't try to contact witnesses or potential witnesses. Let me handle everything." After she left, Adriano and I sat in silence. Lucia was still with Isabella. I'd called and asked her to keep our daughter overnight, not wanting her to see the aftermath of the search. "Tell me the truth," I said finally. "All of it." Adriano sighed and ran his hands through his hair. 6 months ago, I was approached by a man named Viktor Kozlov, Russian oligarch. We'd done business years ago before I went legitimate. The name sent ice through my veins. The same man from the FBI photos 2 years ago. He wanted me to facilitate the acquisition of a collection of Byzantine manuscripts, offered a substantial sum. I refused, told him I was out of that business entirely. And he wasn't happy about it, said I owed him for past favors, that refusing would have consequences. Adriano met my eyes. I told him to go to hell. "So he's retaliating by framing you?" "That's my guess. He has connections, resources. It wouldn't be hard to fabricate evidence of illegal transactions, especially if he has someone inside who can plant documentation." "Inside where?" "The foundation, the vineyard, maybe even my legal team." He stood and paced. "Someone with access to my accounts and files." The paranoia of it was exhausting. "What do? We prove my innocence. We find whoever is setting me up and expose them." His expression hardened. "And then I make sure Viktor Kozlov never threatens my family again." The cold determination in his voice reminded me of who Adriano had been before he promised to go legitimate. The man who operated in gray areas, who didn't forgive threats. "No," I said firmly. "You're not going after Kozlov. You're not doing anything that could be interpreted as intimidation or retaliation." "Helena, no." I stood to face him. "You swore you were done with that world. Done with gray areas and dangerous men. If you go after Kozlov, you're proving the FBI right, that you never really changed. He's framing me for crimes I didn't commit. Then we prove you didn't commit them through legal channels, through lawyers and documentation and truth." I grabbed his hands. "Please, Adriano. Don't give them a reason to destroy you. Don't give me a reason to leave." He pulled me close, his arms tight around me. "I won't lose you again, either of you. Then fight this the right way." Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca built our defense. She documented every foundation transaction, interviewed every grant recipient, and assembled proof that Adriano's financial activities were completely legitimate. But the investigation didn't stop. More agents, more questions, more pressure. And then the media got hold of it. Disgraced art dealer under investigation for renewed smuggling activities. UNESCO advisor Adriano Nero accused of illegal antiquities trafficking. Federal probe targets Nero Foundation following tip from anonymous source. The anonymous source was almost certainly Kozlov, but proving it was another matter. The foundation's board called an emergency meeting. Adriano was asked to step down temporarily pending the investigation's outcome. His UNESCO position was suspended. Everything we'd built, the reputation, the legitimacy, the future, was collapsing. "I'm so sorry," Adriano said one night as we sat on the terrace. Lucia was asleep inside. The vineyard stretched before us in the moonlight. "You were right to want me to stop. If I'd never gotten involved with preservation work at all." "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't apologize for doing something you believed in. Just promise me we're going to fight this together." "Together," he agreed. 3 weeks into the investigation, Rebecca called with news. "I found the leak. Someone in the Foundation's accounting department has been fabricating documentation to make legitimate transactions look suspicious." "Who?" Adriano demanded. "A woman named Irina Volkov. She was hired 8 months ago. Excellent credentials. But after digging, I discovered she has family connections to Viktor Kozlov." The pieces fell into place. Kozlov had planted someone inside the Foundation specifically to sabotage Adriano. "Can we prove it?" I asked. "I'm working with forensic accountants. They're comparing the documentation the FBI received with our original records. The forgeries are good, but not perfect. We should be able to demonstrate they've been altered." Hope flickered for the first time in weeks. "How long until you can present this to the FBI?" Adriano asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I want the case airtight before we approach them." Those 3 weeks were agony. Every day brought new media speculation. Every night brought the fear that federal agents would arrive to arrest Adriano. But finally, Rebecca called. "I'm meeting with the FBI tomorrow. I have everything we need to prove the documents were fabricated. They should drop the investigation." "Should?" I repeated. "Nothing is guaranteed, but the evidence is compelling." She paused. "There's one more thing. Irina Volkov has disappeared. Her apartment is empty. Her bank account's closed. She's gone. Kozlov got to her," Adriano said grimly. "Probably, but we have enough documentation to prove the forgeries regardless. Her disappearance actually helps our case. It suggests someone with something to hide." The next day felt endless. Rebecca met with federal investigators for 4 hours. Adriano paced the terrace. I held Lucia and prayed. When Rebecca finally called, her voice was triumphant. "They're dropping the investigation. The FBI agrees the documents were fabricated. Agent Williams apologized for the disruption. Relief washed through me so powerfully I had to sit down. "It's over?" I asked. "The investigation is closed, but Adriano's reputation has taken a hit. Rebuilding trust with the Foundation Board and UNESCO will take time." "I'll do whatever it takes," Adriano said, "however long it takes." That night, after Lucia was asleep, Adriano and I stood on the terrace under the stars. "I was so scared," I admitted. "Scared you'd be arrested. Scared Lucia would grow up visiting her father in prison. Scared I'd have to choose between supporting you and protecting her." "You shouldn't have had to be scared." He pulled me close. "This is my fault. My past catching up to haunt our present. It's Kozlov's fault for being vindictive. And it's over now." "Is it?" He looked down at me. "Because part of me wants to make him pay for what he did, for threatening my family, for nearly destroying everything we've built. And the other part? The other part knows that revenge would make me exactly what the FBI suspected, a criminal who never really changed." He kissed my forehead. "So, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to rebuild my reputation through legitimate work. And I'm going to spend every day proving to you that choosing us was the right decision." I believed him. And more importantly, I believed in us. We'd survived the worst. The lies exposed, the truth revealed, the consequences faced. Now we just had to rebuild. Together. 6 months after the investigation closed, Adriano was reinstated at UNESCO. The Foundation Board invited him back with new oversight measures in place. His reputation, while damaged, was slowly recovering. But something had fundamentally changed. Adriano was different, more cautious, more transparent, more focused on family than mission. "I used to think preserving heritage was the most important thing I could do," he said one evening as we watched Lucia toddle through the vineyard. She was almost 2 now, fearless and curious about everything. But I was wrong. Raising her, building a life with you, that's what actually matters. "You can do both," I said. "Just legally this time." He smiled. "Just legally." The vineyard had its best year yet. The foundation launched 3 major projects, all completely above board. Lucia learned to say Papa and Mama, and had an alarming talent for getting into everything. Life was good. Not perfect. We still dealt with the occasional news article rehashing the investigation, the occasional suspicious glance from colleagues who wondered if Adriano had really changed. But we were building something real, something that would last. On Lucia's 2nd birthday, we had a small party at the vineyard. Sophia came with her new boyfriend. Isabella and her family. Marco and a few trusted friends. As I watched Adriano chase Lucia through the vines, both of them laughing, I felt something settle inside me. Peace. Maybe even happiness. "You did good," Sophia said, appearing at my elbow with wine. "You saved him from himself." "He saved himself," I corrected. "I just gave him a reason to try." "Same thing." She clinked her glass against mine. "To second chances. To choosing family," I amended. That night, after Lucia was asleep and the guests had left, Adriano and I stood on the terrace. The vineyard was quiet, the house peaceful, our daughter safe in her bed. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "Choosing us over the preservation work?" "Never. No hesitation. You and Lucia are my greatest accomplishment. Everything else is just decoration." I leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent. "I'm proud of you. For changing. For fighting for us. For proving that people can actually become better versions of themselves. I had good motivation." He turned me to face him. "You're terrifying when you're angry." I laughed. I wasn't angry. I was terrified. Of me? Of losing you, of having to raise Lucia alone, of explaining to her why her father couldn't be part of her life. I touched his face, of losing the love I fought so hard to build. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. You'll never lose me. Not to preservation work, not to Viktor Kozlov, not to anything. I'm here, for good. I believed him. And more than that, I'd learned to trust that belief. Because over 3 years of loving Adriano Nero, through lies and truth, through danger and safety, through the desperate kiss that started everything and the daily choices that sustained it, I'd learned something important. Love wasn't about perfect people making perfect choices. It was about flawed people choosing each other every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Adriano had chosen us, over and over, through investigations and accusations and the constant pull of the work he'd given up. And I'd chosen him. Despite the lies, despite the fear, despite every rational reason to walk away, we'd chosen each other. And that choice had built something extraordinary. A family, a home, a future worth fighting for. As we stood under the stars, the vineyard spreading around us like a promise, I felt grateful for that desperate night 3 years ago when I'd kissed a stranger. Because that forbidden kiss had led me here, to this man, this life, this beautiful, complicated, perfectly imperfect love, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it, not even the hard parts, especially not the hard parts, because those were the moments that proved what we were really made of, and we were made of something strong enough to last,